Hey, what is up guys, GuitarRock here, welcome back to another reverse 1999 video. Alright, in today's video, we're going to be talking about Six, the next character that's coming in version 1.4. Now if you guys are not aware, Six is definitely known as one of the strongest meta buffers or debuffer in the game, especially if you're looking to tackle the 4-man raid boss content coming later in version 1.4 as well, which I'm going to showcase to you guys a little bit. But before we jump into today's video, big shout out to Reverse 1999 for sponsoring this video. Let's go, let's jump into it. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Six and what he can actually bring to the table. I do think that he's going to be one of the better supports moving forward because of his ability to do a multitude of different things on his own. Now, first up, he is going to be an intellect type. So if you guys are not aware, intellect particularly do not have any weaknesses against the beast, plant, mineral or star affiliators, right? So that's already, in my humble opinion, a plus. Now, he is categorized as a support, and of course also he can apply Purify, which I believe is something that's extremely unique right now. And last but not least, the ability to debuff as well. Now let's first jump into his insight because this is where we'll be able to understand his skill better. Alright, you can see quite a number of things right here, but I'm going to leave the translation for the English version. He is similar to 37 in terms of the concept of Eureka. So you can see when you insight one, he'll have Eureka +1, alright? At the end of the round, if any allies are affected by 4 or more, either stats up, position status or counter, then he will get Eureka +1. Now this is pretty cool when you are attacking a target that is in either stats down, negative status or control statuses. He has his damage dealt increased by 16%. Now what is Eureka used for Six, right? Because for 37, you have the ability to basically cast this AoE damage when you reach max stacks. But for Six, the Eureka bar is mostly used to do more damage on his ultimate skill. As you can see, the ultimate skill is a one target attack and he deals 700% mental damage. That's a lot of multiplier right there. And if Eureka is at 6 or more stacks, he will use those 6 stacks to buff his ultimate to do even more damage. It's going to increase by 75% for every debuff the enemy has, up to 4 stacks. So that means increase up to 75 times 4, which is another 300% on top of his 700%. So that's like 1000% multiplier, which is insane. Now this makes him a support that's somewhat reliant on him casting a lot of ultimate. Alright, but how do you cast ultimate more often? You gotta cast your spells more often. And that means he can be quite AP heavy because of that. So for a support character, he actually is pretty AP reliant, which can be somewhat finicky to use him at least in short fights. But in long fights, that's where he shines because he will be able to cast his ultimate extremely often the longer the fight goes. So that's where he shines and excels especially. Now, let's talk a little bit more about all of these things, right? He has this ability to perform collection of buffs and collection of debuffs. And this is going to be particularly insane when you are using him in a 4-man party. His value skyrocketed significantly because of that. Now, first, let's talk about this particular skill, the debuff skill. Alright, this is where it gets his only other damaging skill is besides the ultimate, right? So it does perform a mass attack. It attacks 2 targets. Alright, it deals mental damage 120%, 175 and 305 on level 3. Now alongside with that, it also randomly casts 2 effects of collection of debuffs for 2 rounds on the enemy. Now if Eureka is at 4 stacks or less, this will be increased by +1 at level 1 and then +2 on level 2 and +3 on level 3. Now let's talk about what is this collection of debuffs. As you can see right down here is listed. He can apply out of 6 debuffs, alright, randomly. So what is this debuff that he can apply? Crit defense -30%, reality defense -20%, mental defense -20%. He can also apply blind, disorient or laceration. So quite a lot of debuffs he can apply. Crazy stuff, but here's the truth, right? The fun part about the debuffs is he will always prioritize in applying new debuffs that the enemy do not already have applied on. So that's going to make him really cool in terms of being a master debuffer in general. Now let's talk about the buff then. What does this particular buff do? Now this one is pretty interesting. He's able to apply this thing that buffs one target. Alright, you can see it purifies either 2 random stats down, negative status or control statuses from the target. So that means he can remove 2 debuffs from your ally. Alright, so if it's level 2, it removes 4, and if it's level 3, it removes 6 debuffs. Pretty crazy right there, right? It randomly applies 2 random effects of collection of buffs. And if Eureka is 5 or more, consumes 5 stacks and applies Incantation Empowerment for 2 rounds. Now that is pretty insane. Now again, let's talk a little bit more about what is all of these buffs, right? He can apply multitude of buffs, and that includes Penetration Rate plus 20%, Incantation Might plus 15%, Mental Defense plus 15%, Reality Defense plus 15%. He can also apply Cure. If you guys are not aware, Cure is the one that heals on every round, similar to Sotobi. And then Reflect 1, which is when you attack, deals Genesis damage to the attacker based on the carrier's attack. So that's like a counter sort of skill. So again, all of these buffs, extremely insane. Alright, there's a lot of things. So Empower Incantation is where it gets super interesting. So the part where if Eureka is at 5 or more stacks, consume 5 stacks and applies Incantation Empowerment. Now, obviously, when you are playing at 6, sometimes you're going to run into a situation like this, right? So right now you can see I have 6 Eureka bars. Now I have 2 options, alright? I can either apply my ultimate, alright, which is going to do a bunch of damage and consume all of these 6 Eureka bars to be able to do additional damage for 75% multiplier, or I can consume 5 stacks, you know, by using the buff on Lilia. In this case, I will be able to apply Empower Incantation plus 1. That's going to increase this particular skill right here, right? Let me just show you guys that part, right? So I can go with this, apply the buff on Lilia. Alright, so that's going to consume 5 stacks, I believe. Apply the debuff on boss, do this, and I'm going to apply the heal.
Until the torch is lit. Learn from silence.
Alright, so Lilia get that thing. Okay, let's see. So as you can see, I got 1 star on this particular one, right? It increased my Incantation by 1 star. So of course, when you use ultimate, you gotta think carefully first before you cast it, because if the boss have debuff, you are going to apply more damage on them. So ideally, if the boss don't have debuff, like in this case, you can see right now there's no debuff on the boss. So sometimes going with a debuff first before applying the ultimate makes more sense. But if you have him on Insight Tree, that's where it gets super interesting, right? The Insight Tree is what makes him like extremely potent and super strong. Alright, because of his ultimate activation. So before he activates his ultimate, if you Insight Tree, now he will randomly inflict 2 effects from the collection of debuffs on all enemies for 2 rounds. This will happen every time you cast your ultimate. And at the start of each round, he will randomly grant 1 effect of collection of buffs to all allies for 2 rounds. Now you can see that's a lot of things. He's applying a lot of debuffs, a lot of buffs every single time. So ideally, to use him to his maximum effect, you want to constantly cast his ultimate. So I found a very cool, interesting trick. He does apply buffs on everyone. That's random. As you can see, Lilia currently has this buff that gives me penetration rate plus 20%, right? And then for my 6, I have this buff that gives me reality defense by 15%. So one cool trick that I thought I would share with you guys, if you're trying to get like a good start, you can keep resetting the stage until you get the buff that you want, actually. Which I find pretty, like it's an interesting trick, right? It allows you to basically like have a good start. Let's see if you can get a different buff this time around. So this time Lilia has the Cure. This one is similar to Sotobi's healing. It heals you 10% HP per round. But like I mentioned, in the long run, it probably doesn't matter. The longer the fight goes, you're going to have all the buffs eventually, right? Now, he is going to be a very cheap character in terms of he doesn't rely on portray as much. But let's talk about his portray a little bit so you guys get an idea what he actually provides or what he actually brings to the table, alright, in case you guys are going for dupe. Now, for level 1 portray, it's going to improve upon the ultimate skill again. It changes to when Eureka is at 5 or more stacks, increase damage by 100%. So basically, as opposed to 6 stacks, it reduces it to 5 stacks, and the 75% increase every debuff the enemy has is become 100%. So doing even more damage. At level 2, Eureka gain at portray 2, Eureka gain is increased by +1. When you attack a target with stats down, negative status or control, damage dealt increased by 24%. Now portray 3, instead of purifying 1 debuff at level 1, now increase to purifying 3 debuff. So 3, 5 and 7, up to 7 debuff to be able to purify. That's a lot actually. Now for portray 4, it increased the damage for the ultimate skill, 100% become 125%, and portray 5 changes the Eureka stacks to 4. Alright, that means he will be able to do insane amount of damage more consistently. It's just bonkers. Now, let's talk about his builds then, because I think he's pretty straightforward, very simple character. If you are building him because he's a support, in his resonance you can put the standard build with like attack or even slight tankiness if you want to. He doesn't really crit much, so I would avoid those crit cubes per se. As for the side cube, this is where it gets super interesting. If you have this particular side cube right here, from version 1.2 I believe, the Luxurious Leisure, this is going to be a very good one because every time he casts a single target ultimate, he will be able to increase damage by 5%, and he is a character with single target ultimate. So I think this is going to be one of the better one. But if you don't have this one, Brave New World is going to be a pretty good one as well. So this is also going to help him with his constant barrage of debuff incantations on the enemies. So overall, I think 6 is a very solid character. I think he's definitely lighter on the portrait side. You don't really need his dupe as much. So if you can get one copy, he's going to be set and will be able to help you in a lot of the, especially in the content later on. As you can see in version 1.4, there's the mains bulletin where you are required to use 4-man party as opposed to a 3-man. This is where it gets super crazy. Definitely he's going to be insanely valuable right here. So if you are looking for a buffer, he is going to be the top one up there alongside with Ann Ann Lee and Shamane as well. So with that being said, that is going to be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think of 6. Are you guys pulling for him? I think if you can only get a copy of one character and you're not looking for dupes as much, I would say 6 is going to be the better one. But hey, that's just my opinion overall. Let me know what you guys think. As always, subscribe if you guys haven't already, give this video a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Big shout out to Reverse 99 for sponsoring this video. Have a nice day. Goodbye.